The race for the White House is about to heat up. US President Joe Biden is tipped to formally announce his bid for re-election next week. The Republicans will be watching with keen interest as they determine who will run on their party's behalf.
It's an announcement the president's been hinting at for months. And according to the Washington Post, next week, Joe Biden will officially kick off the 2024 race with an announcement video for his re-election campaign.
This is America.
Timed to coincide with the 4-year anniversary of his 2020 campaign launch. The White House staying quiet on the issue for now.
Any announcement or anything that is related to 2024 certainly will not come from here.
But most observers say the president faces major headwinds. He's already the oldest president in American history, and his job approval is still stuck in the 40s as fear over crime and inflation persist. House Republicans also claim they'll be conducting oversight hearings into the president's family during the campaign.
If he does go forward with running for re-election and all these facts come to light, you're going to have the kind of reckoning in public that we did not have in 2020.
Meanwhile, on the Republican side, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis continues his nationwide tour trying to win over social conservatives with his, quote, Florida blueprint. He hasn't officially announced his candidacy, but he's gearing up for a tough fight against former President Trump, prompting a new warning from the head of the RNC.
We're about to go through a bruising primary, guys, probably. We're about to have some rough and tumble times. But we have to come together as a Republican family, despite our differences.
A recent Fox News poll showed Trump leading DeSantis by some 30 points nationwide.
Joining us now is Dean of Global Futures at Curtin University, Professor Joe Siracusa. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So, Joe Biden tipped to announce he's running again. What are the challenges ahead for him?
Good afternoon, Danica. Well, I tell you what, his challenge is he has to prove to the American people that he's fit, that he has a program that he could take on his challengers. I mean, you know, he's going to go up against President Trump, and you know, the audience probably can't understand something, and that is, you know, this is the greatest job in the world. It's the ultimate source of action. And we've got an 80-year-old guy who's probably at the end of his career up against Trump, who's looking at courtroom time. That is, he's probably not going to go to jail. And you wonder, well, where is everybody else, as a matter of fact? And so we got this problem we've had since Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan ran against each other in 1980, Danica, and that is, and sometimes the American presidential race is not about the lesser of two evils, it's about the evils of two lessers. I mean, I can't believe there aren't more people running for this position. And of course, Biden's in a tough spot here. He has a running mate who's even less popular than he is. Before I came on air, I think his popularity rating was 39%. 45% of Democrats don't want him to run because they think he's too old. And of course, he said what? He said he had a note from his doctor that he was fit. Well, I can get a note from my doctor to say I'm going to play right field for the New York Yankees on Monday, but that's not going to happen. It's just ridiculous.
Well, you raise a good point there. People wondering, well, where is everybody else? And we heard this week that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's announced his presidential bid. So what are his chances against Joe Biden?
Zero. I mean, he's an anti-vaxxer guy, and, you know, he's quite an individual by himself. Look, he's got a famous name, but there are people with famous names who fall flat on their face. You know, he's probably a very good congressman or whatever he does, but he's not Robert Kennedy. He's not John Kennedy. I mean, those were exceptional people in exceptional times in the 1960s. I saw them both up close and personal. I mean, they were extraordinary people. It just you know, kind of beggars belief where we're going with this. And of course, you know, Biden is fighting the economy. 20% of Americans say the greatest issue right now is the economy. Some say environmental, some say crime, and the rest of it. But he's got to get the economy going again. And in the area of foreign policy, he's a zero. He's, you know, we're at war with Russia. China doesn't talk to us, North Korea doesn't talk to us, and Iran doesn't talk to us. I mean, we're just sitting ducks all over the place. So his foreign policy is a disaster, and he hangs on because there doesn't seem to be anything else. But I got a hunch there's something else going on in Washington. I've been to Washington in the last 6 or 7 months, and you know, just beneath the surface of all the great issues, I think is the issue of corruption, maybe even in both parties. You know, who's getting played and who's profiting by it. And I think there's a great deal of corruption just beneath the surface there, and maybe these congressional hearings will prove something else. But Danica, there are a whole lot of people in Washington with millions of dollars in their bank accounts who can't explain how it got there. So that's why the issue about Trump's taxes never became a big problem, because most Americans don't want to show their tax files, because the people who voted for them might be quite surprised.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting point. I want to go back to your earlier point there about Joe Biden's age, because he would be about 86 by the time he completes a second term, if that happens. Do you think that this will be a factor when Americans go to cast their votes?
If they saw him as an outlier, that is an extraordinary senior person, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, people who still climb mountains and jump out of airplanes. I mean, I don't think I get that. Just keep in mind, too, if he were a top surgeon in the world, he would not be able to perform surgery at most of the hospitals in the world because of his age, 60 or 65. If you can't perform surgery at a certain age, there certainly is a time, I suppose, you should think, when you can't run the free world at a certain age. Would he have the energy? But look, I don't want to poke fun at him. Some days he has very good days, and I've enjoyed some of his speeches. Other times it's just plain damn cringeworthy. You can barely watch what's going on. But as I say, the world must be wondering, where is everybody? And there is kind of a mediocrity right now in Washington. I mean, there are people who want to be president. I mean, don't get me wrong. There'd be people who could run over either Trump or Biden if they had an opportunity, but they're not going to have the opportunity. President Biden has all the advantages of the incumbent, and former President Trump has all the advantages of having been the former president of the United States. So they got all kinds of things going on that nobody else has. Now, Ron DeSantis could probably beat Biden for sure, at least in the polls, but he's not going to get a real shot at President Trump right now, because he's got to look like he's playing the game, as a matter of fact. So we're going to have some great politics. And I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of issues coming up that somebody's going to have to solve. And I'm talking here about nuclear weapons regime. I'm talking about climate change. I'm talking about acute security and food issues around the world. And we got a lot of places that are just falling down. And so we're going to need some very inspired and good leadership in the world. And in most of the people in the West and look to America for guidance and inspiration. Are they going to get it this time around? I don't think so. But, the thing I think with Biden is interesting is, how well is his vice president going to poll? I mean, if he doesn't make it, he's got to have somebody in the wings ready to go. And I don't know. I don't know if most Americans can deal with President Kamala Harris. I think she's got some wonderful qualities. She hasn't shown them yet, as a matter of fact. She didn't go to the border or anything she was supposed to do. She's kind of doing her own thing. So, we got to show some people who are pretty good vice presidential material, because whether it's Trump or Biden, both of them are in their late 70s. And let me tell you, Danica, when the maker comes for you, there's no poll. You just go. I mean, these guys reach a certain age where they've outlived everybody else.
Absolutely. Well, you're right. Look, interesting times to come, and we will await that big announcement by Joe Biden this week. Joe Siracusa, good to speak with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay. Thank you.